The conference hall of Station Triumph 7 stretched across 3 kilometers of reinforced metal and energy fields. Representatives from 47 different species floated, sat, or hovered around the circular chamber. Some breathed methane, others required intense cold, and a few existed as pure energy contained in magnetic bottles. The Galactic Council had been meeting for 6 standard cycles, and everyone was tired. Ambassador Thelnax shifted her energy form inside her containment field. She had lived for 3,000 years and thought she had seen everything the galaxy could offer. The current debate was about the Vraxian Empire and their aggressive expansion into the outer fringe territories. The insectoid Vraxians had been conquering smaller civilizations for the past decade, and the Council could not agree on what to do about it. "We should intervene," said Representative Koloma, his blue scales shimmering under the station lights. "The Vraxians have destroyed 17 colonies. How many more must die before we act? And risk another galactic war?" countered Ambassador Gentar, her multiple eyes blinking in sequence. "We have enjoyed peace for 800 years. Do you want to throw that away?" The debate continued in circles as it had for weeks. Thelnax found her attention drifting to the holographic displays showing the current conflict zones. The Vraxian fleet was massive, over 6,000 warships equipped with the latest plasma weapons and shield technology. Any military action against them would cost millions of lives. A sudden alert chimed through the chamber. The head of Council Security, a towering crystalline being named Shard, projected new sensor data into the center of the room. "We have detected an unidentified fleet approaching the fringe conflict zone. Long-range scans show 47 vessels of unknown origin." The chamber fell silent. Unknown vessels were rare in the mapped galaxy. Every spacefaring civilization had been catalogued for thousands of years. Thelnax leaned forward, studying the projected images. The ships looked strange, with hard angles and primitive designs. They used chemical rockets for propulsion, something her people had abandoned 50,000 years ago. "What kind of weapons do they carry?" asked Kolma. Shard magnified the scan data. "Kinetic projectiles and what appear to be fission-based explosives. No energy shields detected, no plasma weapons. Their hull composition is simple metal alloys." A wave of laughter rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Gentar clicked her mandibles in amusement. "Someone is flying museum pieces into a war zone. This should be entertaining." "Perhaps they are refugees," suggested a small furry delegate from the peaceful Humi worlds. "Or scavengers looking for salvage," added another voice. Thelnax did not laugh. Something about those ships bothered her. The designs were efficient, purposeful. These were not pleasure craft or cargo haulers. These were warships, even if primitive ones. But warships from where? The Council adjusted the holographic display to show a live feed from observation drones near the conflict zone. The mysterious fleet moved in tight formation, their trajectories precise and coordinated. They were heading directly toward the main Vraxian battle group, which consisted of over 300 warships currently bombarding a colony world. "They are going to be destroyed," said Kolma, shaking his massive head. "We should warn them." "Too late," Shard replied. "The Vraxians have already detected them and are moving to intercept." The chamber watched as the Vraxian fleet changed formation, surrounding the tiny, unknown fleet. The lead Vraxian vessel, a massive dreadnought called the Consuming Maw, broadcast a standard challenge on all frequencies. "Unidentified vessels, you have entered a restricted military zone. Identify yourselves immediately or be destroyed." For a long moment, there was no response. Then a simple message came through, translated automatically by the station's linguistic computers. The voice was calm, almost casual. "Terran Expeditionary Force, withdraw from occupied territories immediately." Terran. Thelnax accessed the galactic database, searching for any reference to that word. Nothing appeared. She expanded her search to ancient records, restricted archives, and myth databases. A small file flickered into existence, marked with warning symbols from civilizations long extinct. The file spoke of a quarantine zone around a yellow star. A world designated as Class 12 hazardous, gravity too high, atmosphere too corrosive, weather too violent. The file claimed that no civilization could possibly evolve there. But there were warnings, fragmentary and ancient, about something dangerous sleeping near that yellow star. In the chamber, the mood had shifted from amusement to curiosity. "Who are these Terrans?" asked Gentar. "Does anyone have data on them?" "Nothing in our records," confirmed Shard. The ship designs match no known civilization, living or extinct. On the holographic display, the Vraxian commander was not patient. The consuming maw powered up its weapons, plasma coils glowing bright blue. Around it, 300 warships did the same. The space between the two fleets lit up with targeting lasers and sensor sweeps. "The Vraxians are preparing to fire," announced Shard unnecessarily. Everyone could see it. Thelnax found herself studying the small human fleet. 47 ships against 300. Primitive weapons against advanced technology. There was no logical outcome except complete destruction. And yet those ships held position. They did not flee. They did not try to negotiate further. They simply waited. "This is a waste of time," said Gentar. "We have real matters to discuss. Let the fools die if they wish." But no one moved to change the display. Every representative in the chamber watched, transfixed. There was something about those ships, something in their perfect formation and absolute stillness that commanded attention. The Vraxian commander gave one final warning. "Last chance, unknown vessels. Surrender or die." The response came in that same calm voice. "We have delivered our message. What happens next is your choice." Thelnax felt a chill run through her energy form. She had heard that tone before, in ancient recordings of wars long past. It was the sound of someone who had already accepted death and was completely comfortable with that acceptance. The Vraxian fleet opened fire. The space around the human fleet turned white with plasma fire. 300 Vraxian warships unleashed their full arsenal simultaneously. Energy beams hot enough to vaporize asteroids crossed the distance in microseconds. The Council observers expected to see the primitive ships disintegrate instantly, reduced to their component atoms. Instead, the human ships moved. They accelerated with such force that Ambassador Thelnax's sensors initially registered it as a malfunction. No organic crew could survive that kind of acceleration. The G-forces would crush bone, rupture organs, and turn blood into a lethal weapon inside the body. But the ships moved anyway, breaking formation and scattering in a dozen different directions. Not all of them were fast enough. 6 human vessels took direct hits, their hulls breaching in silent explosions of atmosphere and debris, but they did not drift dead in space. Instead, the damaged ships adjusted their trajectories and accelerated harder, pointing directly at their attackers. "They are going to ram," whispered Kolma. His voice filled with disbelief. He was right. The damaged human ships, leaking air and burning from internal fires, increased speed toward the nearest Vraxian vessels. One destroyer, its entire port side torn open, slammed into a Vraxian cruiser at 17% of light speed. The impact released more energy than a small star. Both ships vanished in an expanding sphere of nuclear fire. The council chamber was completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. They simply watched as another human ship, this one with only maneuvering thrusters functioning, crawled close to a Vraxian battleship and detonated its reactor core. The explosion took out 3 nearby Vraxian escorts. "This is not warfare," said Ambassador Gentar, her voice shaking. "This is suicide." But Thelnax was beginning to understand. She pulled up detailed scans of the human fleet movements. Each ramming attack was calculated. Each sacrifice took out ships worth 5 times the mass of the human vessel. They were not throwing their lives away randomly. They were trading pieces in a game where they calculated every exchange to be in their favor. The remaining human ships deployed weapons that made the Council's military advisors gasp in shock. Nuclear missiles, dozens of them, launched on simple ballistic trajectories. These were not sophisticated weapons. They did not have guidance systems or electronic warfare capabilities. They were just bombs thrown in the general direction of the enemy, and they were devastatingly effective. The Vraxian shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and charged particle beams, did almost nothing against the massive kinetic warheads. The missiles simply plowed through the defensive fields and detonated. Raw fusion fire washed over Vraxian hulls. Radiation, normally dispersed harmlessly by energy shields, cooked crews inside their ships. A transmission came through from one of the Vraxian vessels. The Council's computers automatically connected the feed. The image showed a Vraxian bridge, but it was almost unrecognizable. Smoke filled the air. Crew members were collapsing, their exoskeletons cracking and melting. The commander's face was blistered with radiation burns. "Command, they don't fight like any species we have encountered," the commander reported, his voice distorted by pain. "They don't try to disable ships. They don't aim for strategic targets. They just kill. Every weapon, every maneuver is designed to maximize casualties. What kind of species fights like this? What manner of... The transmission cut to static as the ship exploded. Shard pulled up a tactical analysis overlay. The human fleet is down to 31 functional vessels. However, the Vraxian battle group has lost 203 ships. Casualty ratio is approximately 6.5 to 1 in favor of the humans. That's impossible, said Kolma. The Vraxians have superior technology, superior numbers, and superior positioning. Technology is only superior if it's designed for the actual battle conditions, Thelnax said quietly. She was accessing more ancient files, her energy form flickering with agitation. The Vraxians optimized their weapons for fighting other galactic civilizations. But these humans, they evolved differently. On the tactical display, the remaining human ships reorganized. They moved like a school of fish or a pack of predators, each one responding to the others without apparent communication. They identified the largest Vraxian ships and focused their attacks with surgical precision. 3 human vessels would coordinate to bracket a single target, hitting it from multiple angles simultaneously. The Vraxians were beginning to panic. Their formations broke apart as captains tried to retreat from the insane attackers, who seemed to feel no fear, no hesitation, and no mercy. But the human ships were faster and more maneuverable than their primitive appearance suggested. They used gravity wells, debris fields, and even the wreckage of destroyed ships as cover and as weapons. One human corvette, its weapons exhausted, accelerated through a cloud of debris from a destroyed Vraxian cruiser. The ship's hull acted like a railgun, the debris impacting its reinforced nose and being thrown backward at incredible velocity. The improvised shrapnel storm shredded 2 pursuing Vraxian fighters. The Vraxian admiral commanding the battle group finally made a decision that shocked the council observers. He ordered a full retreat. The remaining Vraxian vessels, nearly 100 warships, broke off engagement and jumped to faster-than-light speeds. They abandoned the system entirely, leaving behind their dead and their dignity. The human fleet did not pursue. They simply stopped at the edge of the colony system they had been defending and began recovery operations. Ships paired up, crews transferring to vessels that were more intact. They collected their dead from the destroyed ships, retrieving bodies that drifted in the void. Then a new transmission came through, broadcast on all council frequencies. The same calm voice from before spoke. "This is Commander Chen of the Terran Expeditionary Force. We have fulfilled our stated objective. The occupied territories have been cleared of hostile forces. We now request formal diplomatic contact with the Galactic Council. We have traveled far to meet you, and we have much to discuss." Ambassador Thelnax made her decision. She stood, her energy form brightening. "I move that we accept this request immediately. We need to understand what we are dealing with." "Agreed," said Kolma, still staring at the display showing the aftermath of the battle. "We need to know where they came from, and we need to know if there are more of them." The vote passed unanimously. For the first time in 800 years of peace, the Galactic Council was afraid. They had just watched 47 primitive ships defeat a force 6 times their size through sheer brutality and tactical genius. If these humans had more ships, if they had better technology, if they decided the Council itself was a threat, Thelnax did not finish that thought. Instead, she began researching those ancient warnings again. Deep in the restricted archives, she found a phrase written by a long-dead civilization. They had encountered the quarantine zone around the Yellow Star and had sent a probe to investigate. The probe had returned with samples of life from the 3rd planet. The civilization's final report contained one sentence before they sealed their records and ordered the system to be avoided forever. "We have found a world where everything is a predator, and the apex predator has learned to walk upright and think. If they ever reach the stars, may whatever gods exist have mercy on the galaxy." Thelnax closed the file and began preparing for humanity's arrival. The galaxy was about to change forever. Ambassador Thelnax called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The chamber filled quickly, representatives arriving from all corners of the station. The mood was different now. The casual confidence that had characterized council meetings for centuries was gone, replaced by nervous energy and fearful whispers. Thelnax projected the ancient files into the center of the chamber. "I have found references to these humans in our oldest records. The data is fragmentary, but it paints a disturbing picture. The hologram displayed a yellow star, unremarkable by galactic standards. This is their home system. The star is designated Sol. The third planet is called Terra, or Earth in their language. It was surveyed approximately 100,000 years ago by the predecessor civilization. Kolma leaned forward. What did they find? A Class 12 hazard world, Thelnak said simply. The highest danger rating in the classification system. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Class 12 worlds were considered uninhabitable even with full environmental suits. They were places where the universe itself seemed hostile to life. Thelnax continued, displaying data streams. The gravity is 2.4 times galactic standard. The atmosphere is 20% oxygen, which is corrosive to most species. The planet has massive oceans of liquid water that cover 70% of the surface. Tectonic plates shift constantly, causing earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The weather systems are violent beyond measure, with storms that can level cities. How could any civilization evolve there? Asked a delegate from the peaceful Humi worlds. That's the terrifying part, Thelnax replied. They did not just evolve there. They thrived. The predecessor surveys found evidence of millions of predatory species, all competing for survival. The humans evolved at the top of this food chain. She displayed an image of a human skeleton. The council members recoiled. The forward-facing eyes, the exposed teeth, the bone structure designed for throwing and running. Every aspect of human anatomy screamed predator. They are persistence hunters, explained a xenobiologist who had been studying the data. They evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They can run for hours without stopping. They can survive in temperatures that would kill most species. They can eat almost anything organic. Their immune systems fight off diseases that would devastate other civilizations. But they are intelligent, protested Kolma. They have technology. They communicate. They are intelligent predators, Thelnax corrected, which makes them infinitely more dangerous. They did not develop shields and energy weapons because they never needed to. Their entire technological development focused on one thing: more efficient ways to kill. Shard projected new data he had intercepted from human communications. I have accessed their military networks. They do not encrypt their transmissions. I believe they do not care if we listen. The data stream showed human military doctrine, freely available on something they called the Internet. The council members read in growing horror. Concepts like mutually assured destruction, where both sides in a conflict would annihilate each other rather than surrender. Total war, where civilian populations became legitimate targets. Scorched earth tactics, where retreating armies destroyed everything behind them, so the enemy gained nothing. This cannot be real, whispered Ambassador Jantar. No civilized species thinks this way. They have a saying, Shard said. Si vis pacem para bellum. It is in an ancient earth language called Latin. It means if you want peace, prepare for war. They prepare for war during peace. Kolma's scales turned dark with stress. What kind of species does that? A species that has survived extinction events multiple times, Thelnax answered. She displayed images from human history. Ice ages that covered continents and glaciers, asteroid impacts that blotted out the sun, volcanic super eruptions that poisoned the atmosphere. They have been nearly wiped out dozens of times. They learned that only the prepared survive. The hologram shifted to show human warfare throughout their history. Bronze Age conflicts where entire cities were slaughtered. Medieval battles with armies numbering in the hundreds of thousands. World wars where industrial capacity determined victory, and nations mobilized their entire populations for conflict. They nearly destroyed themselves with nuclear weapons. Thelnax continued. They built enough atomic bombs to sterilize their planet 10 times over. For decades, they stood on the brink of self-annihilation, but they did not destroy themselves. They learned control barely, and channeled that destructive capability outward. An alert chimed through the chamber. Shard spoke urgently. Long-range sensors have detected another human fleet. 200 vessels this time. They are larger than the first fleet and appear to have more advanced technology. The tactical display updated. The new human ships still used primitive kinetic weapons and nuclear missiles, but they had incorporated captured Vraxian technology. Their hulls showed energy shield emitters. Their engines used faster-than-light drives reverse-engineered from wreckage. They learned from one battle, Kolma said. One single battle, and they adapted alien technology to their own purposes. Humans are tool users. the xenobiologist explained. It is fundamental to their evolution. Give them any technology and they will figure out how to weaponize it. They do not think of tools as fixed objects. They see them as components that can be improved, modified, and combined. The chamber received another update. The Vraxian Empire, which had been expanding aggressively for decades, had issued an empire-wide order. All forces were to withdraw from the outer fringe. They were abandoning systems they had fought for years to conquer. The Vraxian Empress herself sent a message directly to the Council. Her image appeared, showing the signs of stress. We have made a grave mistake. We provoked a species that should have remained dormant. The humans do not fight for territory or resources. They fight because they believe it is right. They have concepts we do not understand. Justice, intervention, duty. These things mean more to them than survival. The Empress continued, her voice shaking. We have fighting experience spanning millions of years across thousands of worlds. But the humans have something we lack. They have fought themselves. They know every trick, every strategy, every dirty tactic because they have used them on each other. They have refined warfare to a science in ways we never imagined necessary. The transmission ended. The council chamber fell silent. Finally, Kolma spoke. The humans have requested diplomatic contact. We must decide how to respond. Do we welcome them? Do we try to contain them? Do we attempt to unite the galaxy against them? Thelnax considered the options carefully. We fight them and possibly lose, or we negotiate and hope their concepts of justice and honor are genuine. But there is one thing we know for certain. The humans stopped when they achieved their objective. They did not continue attacking. They did not pursue the Vraxians. They followed rules, their own rules, but rules nonetheless. So what do? Asked Ambassador Gentar. We talk to them, Thelnax said. We learn everything we can, and we pray to whatever gods we believe in, that they see us as potential friends rather than potential threats. The vote was unanimous. The Galactic Council would meet with humanity. They would invite these apex predators into their civilization and hope that the decision did not doom them all. As the session ended, Thelnax returned to her quarters and accessed the restricted files one more time. The final line of the predecessor report haunted her. If they reach the stars, they will either save the galaxy or conquer it. There will be no middle ground. She wondered which future was approaching. The council chamber had been modified extensively for the human delegation. Engineers installed gravity generators capable of producing Earth-normal conditions, which meant 2.4 times galactic standard. They pumped in an oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere that most species found mildly toxic. Temperature controls maintained conditions that other delegates found uncomfortably warm. Security forces lined the corridors, though everyone understood it was psychological comfort. If the humans decided to attack, no amount of guards would stop them. Still, it made the council members feel better to see armed soldiers standing ready. Ambassador Thelnax waited at the main airlock with Kolma and several other senior council members. Behind them, the full council had assembled, representatives from all major civilizations. Some had argued for meeting the humans in a smaller private setting. Thelnax had rejected that idea. This meeting would set the tone for all future human-galactic relations. It needed to be public and formal. The airlock cycled. The inner door opened. 3 humans walked through. They were smaller than Thelnax had expected. The tallest stood perhaps 2 meters high, which was tiny compared to species like Kolma, who towered at 4 meters. But their movements were fluid and confident. They walked in the heavy gravity without apparent effort, carrying themselves like trained warriors even in their formal dress. The lead human stepped forward. She was a woman with dark skin and gray hair pulled back tightly. She wore a uniform of dark blue fabric with colored ribbons and metal insignia on the chest. I am Ambassador Williams of the United Nations of Earth. This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Space Navy, and Dr. Okafor, our chief xenobiologist. Thelnax noticed several things immediately. The humans' eyes were constantly moving, scanning the room, assessing threats and exits. Their hands hung loosely at their sides, ready to reach the ceremonial weapons they wore on their belts. Even in a diplomatic setting, they were prepared for violence. Welcome to Station Triumph 7, Thelnax said, her voice projected through speakers. We are honored to finally meet you. Ambassador Williams smiled, showing white teeth. The expression was meant to be friendly, but Thelnax's instinct screamed predator. Those teeth were designed for tearing flesh. The honor is ours. We have dreamed of meeting other intelligent species for centuries. We only wish the circumstances were more pleasant. The delegation moved to the central platform where the negotiations would take place. The council members arranged themselves around the humans, who stood calmly in the center of the circle. Admiral Chen's eyes never stopped moving, cataloging every delegate, every exit, every potential weapon. Kolma began the formal proceedings. We have reviewed the incident in the outer fringe. Your intervention stopped the Vraxian advance and saved millions of lives. However, we must understand your intentions. Why did you involve yourselves in conflict so far from your home? Ambassador Williams stepped forward. We have telescopes that can observe events hundreds of light years away. We saw the Vraxian attacks. We watched them destroy civilian populations, burn colony worlds, and enslave survivors. We could not stand by and allow such atrocities to continue. But these were not your people, said Ambassador Gentar. Why risk your lives for strangers? Because it was the right thing to do, Williams replied simply. We have a concept called humanitarian intervention. When we see massive suffering that we have the power to stop, we have a moral obligation to act. Dr. Okafor activated a holographic display. He showed images of Earth history, humans helping each other during natural disasters, humans fighting against oppression and tyranny, humans sacrificing themselves to save others. This is what we are, he explained. We are capable of great violence, yes, but we are also capable of great compassion. The two are not contradictory. They are two sides of the same coin. You nearly destroyed yourselves, Kolma pointed out. Your history shows constant warfare. We did, Admiral Chen agreed. Her voice was hard, carrying the weight of military experience. We fought 2 world wars. We created weapons that could end all life on our planet. We stood on the edge of extinction and looked into the abyss. And we stepped back. We learned slowly and painfully that cooperation was better than destruction. She gestured to the council members, but we never forgot how to fight. We could not afford to forget. Our world taught us that predators exist, that threats are real, and that only the prepared survive. So we kept our weapons. We maintained our military. We studied warfare even during peace, because we knew someday we would need those skills again. Thelnax asked the question everyone wanted answered. What do you want from us? Ambassador Williams' expression became serious. 3 things. First, recognition as a sovereign galactic power with the same rights and responsibilities as any council member. Second, open trade and cultural exchange. We want to learn from you, and we have much to offer in return. Third, we want access to your threat database. We want to know what dangers exist in the galaxy so we can prepare. You want to know what threats exist so you can fight them, Gentar said accusingly. Yes, Williams said without hesitation. We want to know what is out there. We will be ready when it arrives. And if we refuse these requests? Asked a council member from the militant Drac species. Admiral Chen answered that question. Then we will continue alone. We will explore the galaxy at our own pace, establish our own colonies, and make our own alliances. But we would prefer cooperation. We genuinely want to be part of the galactic community. How many ships do you have? Kolma asked bluntly. We sent 2 fleets to the fringe, Chen replied. The expeditionary force of 47 ships and the reinforcement fleet of 200. We have 30 more fleets in various stages of construction and deployment. Every ship is crewed by volunteers who understand they may not return home. We do not force anyone to serve. The number sent a chill through the chamber. 30 more fleets. If each fleet was as effective as the first one they had seen, humanity could challenge any military power in the galaxy. You are asking us to accept apex predators into our civilization, said Thelnax carefully. You must understand our concerns. Ambassador Williams nodded. We do understand. We are asking you to trust that we are more than our capacity for violence. Yes, we evolved as hunters. Yes, we are good at warfare. But we are also artists, scientists, philosophers, and dreamers. We create beauty as readily as we create weapons. We explore because we are curious, not because we are conquerors, Dr. Okafor added. Our planet tried to kill us every day. Predators, diseases, disasters. We survived by working together. Cooperation is as fundamental to humanity as competition. We are strongest when we stand together. The debate continued for hours. Council members asked questions about human culture, technology, government, and philosophy. The human delegation answered everything honestly, holding nothing back. They showed recordings of Earth beautiful and terrible. They played human music, shared human art, and explained human values. Finally, Kolma called for a vote. All in favor of accepting humanity as a recognized galactic power with full diplomatic status. The vote was close, but it passed. 24 species voted in favor, 20 voted against, and 3 abstained. It was enough. Ambassador Williams bowed her head in respect. Thank you. We will prove worthy of your trust. As the human delegation left the chamber, Thelnax noticed something. Ambassador Williams was smiling, but her eyes were calculating, measuring, analyzing. The Admiral walked with the easy confidence of someone who knew exactly how to kill everyone in the room if necessary. The scientist's friendly demeanor hid a mind that was processing every piece of information, learning and adapting. We have invited predators into our home, Thelnax whispered to Kolma. I know, he replied, but what choice did we have? Better to have them as friends than enemies. Thelnax hoped he was right. The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the diplomatic recognition, the galaxy was still adjusting to humanity's presence. Human trade ships appeared at stations across known space, their crews eager to exchange goods and ideas. Human tourists visited alien worlds, loud and curious and fearless. Human scientists collaborated with galactic researchers, bringing fresh perspectives to ancient problems. But it was the human approach to danger that truly unsettled other species. A mining operation in a high radiation zone, considered too hazardous for most workers, received human volunteers who called it a good opportunity. A research station on a volcanic moon, abandoned by previous inhabitants, became a thriving human colony. Humans treated deadly environments like mild inconveniences. Ambassador Thelnax had spent the months learning everything she could about humanity. She watched their entertainment, which was violent and dramatic. She listened to their music, which ranged from beautiful to deliberately harsh. She read their literature, filled with themes of struggle, survival, and triumph over impossible odds. The cultural exchange was not one-sided. Humans absorbed galactic knowledge with voracious enthusiasm. They learned new sciences, new arts, new philosophies, but they never simply copied. They adapted everything they learned, putting their own stamp on it. Human fusion cuisine combined Earth ingredients with alien flavors. Human musicians incorporated galactic instruments into their own styles. Human engineers looked at established technology and asked, but what if we did it differently? Then the crisis came. Long-range sensors detected anomalies in the galactic core. Ancient automated systems dormant for 50,000 years began broadcasting warnings. The Council's xenoarchaeologists decoded the messages with growing horror. The devouring swarm was awakening. Thelnax had only heard of the swarm in historical records. It was a biological horror, a species that consumed entire biospheres and moved on to the next system. Millions of ships, each a living organism designed for one purpose, eating. The swarm had destroyed 3 major civilizations before going dormant. Now it was stirring again. The Council mobilized every available military force. Projections showed they could stop the swarm, but casualties would be catastrophic. 60% of all military personnel would likely die. Entire fleets would be sacrificed. It would take generations to recover. Admiral Chen attended the military planning session. She listened to the strategies, studied the tactical maps, and reviewed the projections. Then she stood. We volunteer to lead the vanguard assault. The silence in the room was absolute. Finally, Kolma spoke. You understand what you're offering? The vanguard will take the heaviest casualties. Most ships will not survive. We understand, Chen replied, but we have a strategy that might reduce overall losses. She outlined a plan that made the galactic military commanders physically uncomfortable. The humans would use one of their own colony worlds as bait. They would evacuate the population and fortify the system with every weapon they could build. Then they would lure the swarm into a prepared killing zone. You would sacrifice an entire colony? Asked a Drac admiral. The colony is just infrastructure, Chen said. We can rebuild infrastructure, but if we let the swarm grow stronger, the casualties across the galaxy will be immeasurable. This is the logical choice. The Council approved the plan, though many members felt sick doing so. Humans began preparations immediately. They evacuated 2 million colonists from a world called New Terra. Then they turned the entire system into a weapon. Orbital platforms filled with nuclear missiles. Asteroid belts laced with mines. Space itself became a death trap. The swarm arrived 3 weeks later. Billions of bioships, each the size of a frigate, poured into the system. They moved with the mindless hunger of locusts, consuming everything in their path. The human defenders opened fire. Nuclear fire lit up space. Kinetic bombardment rained down from orbital platforms. Human ships darted between the swarm organisms, firing point-blank into vulnerable areas. The battle was chaos, a maelstrom of violence and death. Thelnax watched from the command center on Station Triumph 7. The casualty reports made her want to shut down her sensors. Human ships were dying by the dozens, overwhelmed by sheer numbers, but they did not retreat. They did not panic. They fought with the same cold efficiency they had shown against the Vraxians. Admiral Chen's flagship, the Washington, took critical damage. A swarm organism the size of a moon latched onto the hull, beginning to consume it. Chen broadcast on all channels, her voice steady despite the alarms blaring in the background. All ships, this is Chen. Washington is compromised. We are initiating final protocol. Remember the Alamo, remember Thermopylae. Remember that humans stood here and did not yield. The Washington's reactor overloaded. The explosion was visible across 3 star systems. It created a temporary gap in the swarm's advance, a moment of disruption in their coordination. The combined galactic forces, positioned behind the human vanguard, exploited that gap. They poured through, fragmenting the swarm's formations. Without central coordination, the bioships became vulnerable. They were still dangerous, still numerous, but no longer unstoppable. The battle lasted 14 hours. When it ended, 40% of the human vanguard was destroyed. 30,000 human military personnel died. But the swarm was broken, its organisms scattered and dying. The galaxy expected humans to grieve, to mourn their enormous losses. Instead, they celebrated. Memorial services honored the fallen as heroes. Statues were erected, songs were written. The humans turned their dead into legends, examples for future generations. Kolma visited the human memorial station orbiting New Terra. He found a young human woman, a survivor from the Washington, standing before a wall of names. "How can you celebrate after such losses?" he asked gently. She turned, tears on her face but a smile on her lips. "Because they gave everything so others could live. Because they stood against impossible odds and made a difference. Because their sacrifice meant something. We don't mourn the way you do. We remember, we honor, we ensure their deaths had meaning." In the council chamber, the political situation had shifted dramatically. Humanity's sacrifice had earned them respect across the galaxy. Species that had voted against their recognition now sought alliances. The Drac Confederation offered military cooperation treaties. The Humi worlds requested human security forces for protection. Thelnax met privately with the new human ambassador, a veteran named Torres. "You have changed the galaxy," Thelnax said. "We laughed at your tiny fleet. Now we understand what we were seeing. Not weakness, but strength we did not recognize." Torres nodded. "My people have a saying. It is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. We choose to be warriors so that others can tend their gardens in peace. And what happens when there are no more wars to fight?" "Then we will explore," Torres said. "We will learn. We will create. We have always been survivors first, but that does not mean survival is all we are. We are also poets and painters and philosophers. We can be whatever the moment requires." The council voted to make humanity a permanent security member with expanded military authority. Human fleets began patrolling the most dangerous regions of space. When pirates attacked trade routes, human ships responded with overwhelming force. When natural disasters struck colony worlds, human aid ships arrived first. The galaxy learned to see humanity not as a threat, but as a protector. The apex predators from the Death World became the guardians others relied upon. 5 years after first contact, Thelnax visited Earth for the first time. She stood in heavy gravity, breathing the corrosive atmosphere, watching humans go about their daily lives. Children played in parks. Artists created beauty. Scientists pushed the boundaries of knowledge. And in orbit above, the military fleet stood ready, always vigilant. A human guide showed her around the planet. They visited ancient monuments, modern cities, and wild spaces where nature still ruled. Finally, they stood on a mountain peak, looking out over a vast forest. "This is what we protect," the guide said. "Not just our own lives, but the possibility of life. The chance for children to grow up in peace. The opportunity for species across the galaxy to thrive without fear. We have seen what happens when good people do nothing. We will never be those people. Thelnax understood then. Humanity's capacity for violence was not a flaw. It was a tool, wielded with purpose and restraint. They were not monsters. They were guardians who understood that sometimes protecting the innocent required becoming the thing predators feared. That night, in a quiet bar on a human space station, a young alien approached a scarred human veteran. The alien asked, "Why do you fight so hard? Why risk so much?" The human sipped her drink, her eyes distant with memory. "Because someone has to. Because we have seen what happens when evil goes unopposed. Because we are very, very good at it, and that skill should be used to protect, not to conquer." She stood to leave, then paused. "We did not choose to be apex predators. Evolution made that choice for us. But we can choose what we do with that legacy. We choose to stand between the darkness and the light." The galaxy had laughed at humanity's tiny fleet. They had mocked the primitive ships and outdated weapons. But now when shadows stirred in the void and ancient threats awakened, the galaxy whispered a prayer. "Let the humans hear of this first. Let them stand between us and the horror. Let them be the monsters that hunt monsters." And in the deep dark of space, human ships patrolled the borders, weapons ready, crews vigilant. They were the watchers on the wall, the guardians at the gate. They had come from a world that tried to kill them every day, and they had survived. Now they would ensure the galaxy survived too. The tiny fleet they had laughed at was just the beginning. Humanity had arrived among the stars, and the galaxy would never forget.